Hello, this is Brad, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the public beta of ProPresenter version 4. We've got a lot of great updates to this software, and as you're already familiar with ProPresenter 3, I just wanted to take a moment to walk you through some of the new feature enhancements and tools that we have available to us. Before I get started, I actually want to talk a little bit about the render engine. This is one of the biggest changes that we've had in ProPresenter version 4. And the largest part of the render engine that has changed is that we've added some additional layers to the system. So I just wanted to illustrate this, is that having a basic understanding of how these different layers work will enable you to understand better how we do things within the software itself. So at the very base layer, we have our background color. The background color is generally in ProPresenter 3 was set as a global setting throughout the software. But in ProPresenter 4, we've added the ability to actually set a background color per document as well as per slide if you wish to do so. On top of the background color layer, we have our live video input layer. Previously in ProPresenter 3, the live video input was going to be, you would either have a background playing or you would have the live video playing. But in ProPresenter 4, we actually have live video input as its own layer. Sitting on top of that is our video playback layer. So any video that you're actually playing back full screen is going to be played in this video playback layer. The great thing is that if you actually have some sort of a video that has an alpha channel as part of it, you would actually be able to see through this video playback layer and see the live video feed underneath if you're actually using this live video function. Above the video playback layer is our slides layer. Slides are, in ProPresenter 3, were all about lyrics, so you only had text to deal with regards to your slides. But in ProPresenter 4, we've introduced the ability to have lots of different objects on the screen, and we're really, really excited about that. And all of these objects will stack on top of the objects that are the layers that are underneath there. So you can have text and graphics and whatnot, videos in a window, laying over a video loop that may be playing, which may be playing over a live video feed. And then finally we have our props layer. You've used the props layer in ProPresenter 3 whenever you're using any kind of announcements or a countdown clock within ProPresenter 3. But in ProPresenter 4 we've actually named this layer, and it's called the props layer, and it's for persistent objects such as a logo that you might have appear in the lower right of your screen, or childcare announcements, or a banner that says "Welcome to the Church," and I'll be showing you some examples of that as we move forward. So the first thing that I want to go over with regards to the new ProPresenter application is our brand new interface, and it'll look very, very familiar to you if you've used ProPresenter 3, but we have made some subtle changes around here. The first of which is this toolbar that's at the very top. Here we have access to lots and lots of different tools that are just readily accessible at a click of the mouse. All of our clear slides are over here, have the ability to create a new presentation by clicking on this icon. We have a template menu, which I'll get to a little bit later. We have quick access to our editor, our video and image bin. By clicking that, it's going to bring up our video and image bin at the bottom of the screen. Our audio bin has been moved over to the right-hand side of the screen now, so it's always accessible, and you can see how it resizes the interface subtly as I bring that up. Then we have messages and props and clocks, all of which I'll get to a little bit later, resources, Bibles. All of the different tools that you're going to use within ProPresenter are instantly accessible here, and it is customizable. So I can customize this toolbar with any of the individual tools that we have within the ProPresenter application. So the interface is all new, and we're pretty excited about it because it retains a lot of what made ProPresenter great to begin with. It just so happens that now we, as we've added a lot of functionality to the software, a lot of flexibility, we really did a lot of thinking about how we could retain the ease of use that you've come to expect from ProPresenter. On the upper left-hand side, we actually have our preview window, just like we've always had, but we also have a scrubber for any kind of videos that you might play. So I'm just going to clear all and play a video background, and this is just going to show you the video that's currently playing, and I can scrub through this or use the fast forward, rewind, pause button, both for backgrounds as well as for foreground videos. And that brings me to a distinction between these two different objects. You'll see that there's two different bins within the video and image bin. The first is our backgrounds, and the second is foregrounds. The distinction between these two types of videos are backgrounds are going to be enhancements that generally run in the background, that are generally looping videos or graphics that are going to lay behind words or other slide objects that are going to sit above it. Whereas foreground videos videos are sermon illustration videos or commercial videos, generally videos with sound that are actually going to have a cue within our cue sheet for the morning service. And so the difference between these is very subtle. Basically, whenever you play a foreground video, it's going to clear all the objects that are off the stage and actually present that video. So if you'd like to interchangeably use the word presentation video for foreground video, that's what that actually means. And then on the left-hand side, we have our library, just as we've always had it. We've moved the searchable menu up here at the top of the library, so you can search both by title as well as the contents of the library. And all of my presentations exist within the library. And just as always, we have our playlist down here. You can create whatever number of playlists that you want, but typically you're going to create a playlist for each individual service that you would actually be building. So this is where you're going to build your individual service. So next I'd like to talk about the different presentation views. We've added a couple new features in our presentation views. We have the grid view, just like you know and love, and the ability to scale this up and down to whatever size that you want. But we've also added the ability to view slides as a table. So clicking on this is going to give a very simple table with consistently sized text. We're just basically taking the text out of the slide and showing it in this new table view that some may prefer. And again, it's just a point-and-click interface, so clicking on any slide will actually make it live as I click on it. Same views are available in my backgrounds area. So I have the regular grid view as well as the table view. But a great new addition to our playlists is a new contiguous view. So the playlist has always contained all the presentations that I would want to use for a given service. And I can actually click on the songs to make them live one at a time, as I'm doing here, and you can see that the slides are changing. However, we've added in ProPresenter 4 this new contiguous view, and it's just as simple as turning it on, and now we have a contiguous view between all of the different songs or presentations of my particular playlist. And this is very, very convenient because once you have a playlist set up, you can basically run right from one song right into the next without missing a beat. You don't actually have to click on the individual presentations within your playlist. So that's a great new enhancement that we've done in ProPresenter 4. At this point, I want to talk a little bit about the structure of documents within ProPresenter 4. In previous versions, in ProPresenter 3, we actually had a master database that contained all of the presentations that we had within our library, and then we would just do all of our searches on that particular database. ProPresenter 4, we've actually simplified this a great deal because now each one of your presentations is actually a drag and droppable document. So if I want to copy individual presentations to a folder on my desktop, then I can actually just select them, and I still have the ability to come under the file menu and say export as plain text or as a Pro4 bundle, but now I can actually take these and drag them wherever I want to. I also have the ability to drag and drop a playlist into a specific folder, and this will actually just make a copy of the playlist in the folder. So this is a new function fundamentally within ProPresenter 4 that is going to give you a lot of new capabilities. One of those new capabilities is the ability to actually have multiple libraries within your presentation. So if I come under the ProPresenter menu to Preferences, you'll notice that I have in my General, I can choose a library folder. What this means is that if you actually have multiple users using the same ProPresenter machine in the same user account, then you can actually do that. So, for example, if I had a youth group that was using the same machine, I can actually add their ProPresenter library to my available libraries. So I'm actually just going to choose the youth library and select that and save. So now I can actually switch between my master library and my youth library, and you'll see that my library is changing as I change between these two. So a very powerful new function that allows multiple organizations that are utilizing the same resource to kind of play within their own, play on their own playground, if you will, play in their own sandbox without affecting anybody else that's going on. Step above this is if you actually have multiple users that are using, and you want to have a single master library, we have a new function that is actually the ability to synchronize multiple libraries. So this could be a folder that's on a server or a folder that's located on your hard drive, and anywhere that you have access to a folder on your machine, whether it be on a network or local, you can actually do a synchronization to that. So The synchronization is actually bidirectional, so I can actually say I want to sync files down, sync files up, or do a bidirectional sync. It remembers the source, and if your folder is not actually available on the machine, then it'll actually look for it on the network and link it up that way, or actually log you into the network. And when I say sync files, it's actually going to grab all of the files that are different and whatnot, and if there's any collisions, that is to say any files that I've done edits to on my machine, that there's an existing file on the master machine, then it will show us that as well. So just to demonstrate that, I'm actually going to come up here and make an edit to this slide. And I'll just get rid of this semicolon. And when I make an edit, this slide is going to be marked, or this presentation will be marked as dirty. So actually, let me just go ahead and add that back in. And it's denoted as dirty because the icon turns from blue to orange. So I can actually just come under the File menu and say Save All, and now it turns back to blue, indicating that all of my changes have taken place. So now that I have an update to this, I'll actually do the bidirectional sync with my master library again. And very quickly it will come up and tell me that there is a new copy. The following files will be replaced on the server, and it will be the file that I actually edited. So I'll go ahead and say proceed, and that is going to update my server with this file that I've made changes to. Now, it's important to note if you actually have a folder that's on the server, if you don't want to allow users to update the content that's on that server, then you can actually block their privileges to write to that folder in the same manner that you would any folder that's on a server. That's independent of ProPresenter. We adhere to the permissions that are given to individual folders based on the way that that particular user is logging into them. So if they don't have write privileges, then certainly we won't give them the ability to write to that folder. So synchronization features is a great new function of ProPresenter. Probably the most fundamental change that we've made in ProPresenter is the ability to actually have multiple objects on slides. And to demonstrate that, I'd actually like to build a special slide just to show you how this works. So I'm actually going to create a new presentation. I'm going to call this presentation Pre-Service Announcements for Sunday. Long title, but I already had an existing pre-service announcement. So I'm going to actually come in here and edit this slide. I'll get rid of the text that initially appeared. And to start with, I'm actually going to drag a background to it. And then I'm going to add a graphic. This is our brand new editor within ProPresenter. Let me hide the audio panel to give us a little bit more room. And the new editor gives me the ability to actually have lots of different objects as part of this. So you can have a text box, and we can move this text box around wherever we want to on the screen. And I'm going to use this text box in just a second, so I'll leave this on the screen. We also have the ability to add additional objects, like a rectangle. So this would just be a shape object. And I'm actually going to use this. So for purposes of this demonstration, I'm actually going to create a graphic that would be a slide for reminding people to turn off their cell phone. And I'm going to try and do this fairly quickly. Over here on the right-hand side, we have our inspector. The inspector is where we can actually see the specifications for a particular document. As we are document-based, each individual document has its own size. And so we've standardized on 1024 by 768, but you can choose whatever size that you want to. That just so happens to be my output resolution at the present time. Then I have all my CCLI information and whatnot, copyright information that I can put in here. The slide itself can have its own background, as I indicated before, and we can also specify the hotkey or whether the slide is disabled within this inspector. Individual objects can have specific properties. So the fill color for this chosen rectangle is presently white. I can very quickly change that by clicking on this color, and I'm going to make it a shade of blue. I can also affect the transparency of it. So I'm actually going to make it 50% transparent. To just kind of give it a cool look there. And then I can add a shadow. I can add a corner radius to this. So I'll do a 30-point corner radius so it actually becomes sort of a rounded rectangle. If I click off of it, you see what that looks like. And then I'm going to send this to the very back by clicking on it and then using this send forward or send backward command to send it to the back. I'll move this text up, and so it's about the same size as my rectangle that I've created for it as a background, so that the text kind of stands out nicely. And now, as I have this text box selected, I'm going to change the properties of it. So I'm actually going to have it aligned to, let's align it to the center, and I can actually start typing in, please turn off your cell phone. And what would be nice, I can stylize this, and this is a new function that we have within ProPresenter. Beyond just choosing the font, we can choose the style and all the regular items that we had in ProPresenter 3 to style text. We can also specify an outline in ProPresenter 4 that is independent, or that is specific to just this text box. So whereas in ProPresenter 3 we had a global preference for specifying the outline and shadow, within ProPresenter 4 we actually have the ability to specify this on a per object basis. We can also kern the text, which is to say change the spacing of the individual letters, and I can also change the leading of this if I want to shrink this down or blow it up, the space between the individual lines. So this advanced typography is new to ProPresenter 4. And the shadow, I'll go ahead and add a shadow. That would be as part of the slide object inspector. And I'll go ahead and add a shadow. The defaults, I'll make that a black shadow with a slight drop shadow. And that looks pretty nice. So here's the start of my slide. I'm starting to come up with something here. Now I'd like to add an object, or add a graphic. And I have a cell phone graphic that I'm just going to grab here. And this is fun because I actually have a transparent PNG file, which is to say I've cut out the background to this particular graphic. And so we just have a hand that's holding a cell phone. I have a number of different ways to display this graphic, and I can click on the sprocket over here, and I can change the source if I want to choose a different graphic, or I can choose the way that I want this to fill the bounding box for this particular graphic object. I can choose to scale to fit, which is what it presently is doing, scale to fill. The differences between these is both scale to fit and scale to fill will maintain the aspect ratio. It's just a matter of whether it will crop the image or not. So if I say scale to fill, it's going to crop the image. Scale to fit is just going to maintain the aspect ratio of the original image and fill it as large as it possibly can into the box. Stretch to fill, which is not working properly in this demo here, will fill the bounding rectangle. Actually, it probably is. It's just that this transparent area is not going to be filled. And then I also have the option to custom fit, and that is to say I can actually scale this in whatever way I want to within the given bounding box. But for purposes of this, I'll just do a scale to fit, and that looks nice. If I want to see what this looks like, I can hit the show button in the lower left and hit Command 1 to see what my audience is seeing. So this is what would be output from my output screen. So some beautiful new effects, both the graphic with the transparent PNG, as well as the transparency that I can set on different objects and the fine-tune control that I can get for text. So this is just one example of being able to do multiple objects on the screen. And with this ability comes some advanced functionality for the way that we can actually manipulate and format individual slides or a group of slides all at once. So as in ProPresenter 3, we have our, just as in ProPresenter 3, we have a format panel, and we have a lot of different options within this format panel for the way that text is going to appear within a given slide. And so right now I'm just working on this one presentation, and I can specify that I want the text to be left aligned, and just by changing these different options, you see that these changes are happening on the slide in real time. I can choose to have the text appear at the top of the screen or in the middle. So I'm going to do middle center, and I can choose the font, and whether I want a shadow or an outline, I can specify what those settings are for the shadow and outline. So I still have the global preferences that I can apply to a number of different presentations all at once by hitting this apply all button, change the font size, all those different things. But the real key and the real power in ProPresenter 4 with all these different objects is we actually now have templates, and those are all accessible from our template menu up here. We've included a number of different sample templates with the software, and what this allows me to do is I can actually apply a template that has more than just a single text box on it. It can have lower third boxes. So this menu would affect any new slides that I would actually create. If I want to apply a specific template to an existing presentation, then I can come over here and use the Apply Template menu, and I will choose this sample template 4. And you can see that all the text has been moved to a lower third box, and I actually have a lower third graphic that appears as well that's slightly transparent. So all the font attributes and the styling of the slide is actually specified as part of the template and is inherited whenever we do this apply template. I'll choose another one. This is a lower left with a semi-transparent background. And I can have graphics as part of these templates as well. So templates are a very, very powerful new function within ProPresenter 4. In addition to using them with our existing presentations or new presentations, we also have a brand new scripture engine for Bible presentations. And I'd like to show you that because templates play a great part in the scripture engine now. When I pull this up, it just opens up as sort of a new sub-window of my main window, and it's showing me the last search that I did, and I'm actually just going to do a quick search for John 3:16. So if you're familiar with the way that ProPresenter 3 worked, we had to actually choose the the book, chapter, and verse from pop-down menus. ProPresenter 4, we actually have the ability to type in whatever our scripture reference is, and it immediately creates slides for that particular scripture reference that I can click on and make live immediately. So if I have a pastor or a preacher that's actually calling out sermon references on the fly from the pulpit, then we can actually pull those up as he calls them. And we have a number of different options for the way that these are formatted. You'll notice that the formatting of this slide, this one verse filled the text box that's been allocated for it by this particular template, so we automatically create a new slide and flow the text from the first slide into the second text. I have the option to have verse numbers, so if I make this slide live, the verse numbers are going to appear as a subscript at the beginning of each individual verse. I can choose to break on new verse, which I will demonstrate by actually extending our reference from 3:16 to 3:16 to 19. And I can also very quickly add previous or next verses using these buttons at the bottom of the screen or at the bottom of my Bible panel. So I can add 3:15 just by hitting previous verse, and it's going to go ahead and load that scripture in with preceding the slides that already existed and format all the slides appropriately. I can choose to do verse references at the end of each individual slide. So you see we have John 3:14, then John 3:15. I can choose to do a passage, the entire passage reference, in this case John 3:14 to 19 at the end of each individual slide. Or I can actually choose to just put the passage reference on the very last slide. I can choose to break on a new verse or to just flow the text right from one slide to the next. So right in the middle of this slide, we go from verse 15 to verse 16. And so, again, this is a very powerful function if I want to do dynamic presentation of scripture references. And if I want a different look to this, then I need only change the template. So if I actually come over here and choose a different template, then it's automatically going to reformat all this text in the chosen template. So very, very powerful function in the new ProPresenter 4 is the scripture layout. Now, I'd like to actually demonstrate what you can do. If your speaker is anything like mine, they actually like to give some context right in the middle of the verses. So there's a lot more, it's not so much on the fly. Well, what we can actually do is we can actually create a presentation for this particular scripture reference. And when I do that, you'll see it actually creates a new presentation over here in my library. So I'll close out of the scripture tool. And now I'm seeing slides just like they appeared in the scripture tool, but these are now completely editable. So I can actually go in and edit this slide. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, then I can actually come in here and be doing an edit. I'll use one of my favorite edit tricks of ProPresenter, which is if I hold down the Option key, anything that appears after the insertion cursor when I hit return is going to be moved to a new slide. So I have the first part and then the second part. And I can do whatever kind of edits that I want to this slide. However, even as a presentation, we still retain a reference to what the original scripture passage was that I originally used to create these slides. So if I get to the end of my passage and the speaker actually makes a reference and says, hey, I want to go on to verse 20, even though the last slide that I have is verse 19, I can still hit the next verse button and it will automatically build verse 20 for me. So I can go ahead and make those slides live without missing a beat. So scripture verses are a powerful new function of ProPresenter 4, and the usage of templates will make it very, very flexible for your particular services. Now I'd like to demonstrate for you the new props layer. The props layer is something that we actually had in ProPresenter 3 in a manner of speaking. It was the layer that actually contained the announcements that you would do for childcare announcements or cars lights that are on in the parking lot. was also a layer that we use for countdown clocks. It's basically a layer that exists above all other layers that would have persistent objects like announcements or logos that are going to appear over a series of slides and are manipulated independently of them. So we have a separate props layer, and we can actually access specific objects by clicking on the props button in the toolbar. And I have a number that I've actually created here. Props are laid out in the slide editor just as if they were regular slides. In this case, I've got 3 different props. The first is a logo. So when I make that live, you'll see that it's highlighted in orange, and I can see that it's in my active props list. And this is what my audience is seeing. It's this lower right logo, or logo bug, as we like to call it, of the ProPresenter logo. Obviously, you would probably want to do your church logo for that. I can also add this welcome banner that's at the top. So in my first song, if I wanted to welcome people to the church, then I could actually put this banner up as well as my church logo. I could really make it gaudy. I don't really recommend doing that, but for purposes of explaining exactly what the props layer is, this will work. So once those are active and live, I can just go about my presentation by changing the slides, going between different presentations, changing video backgrounds, doing everything that I would normally do with ProPresenter, and all of these objects are just going to remain on the screen and hover, if you will, over everything else that's actually going on in my presentation. And then if I want to clear them, I can actually come up to the props layer and either click on each of them individually to make them go away, or I can actually hit the little close box that exists in this active props banner at the top of the props window. So those are one kind of props, but the more probably useful type of prop is messages, and we've enhanced our messaging system within ProPresenter 4 dramatically. Previously, we just had a single message. Now we have unlimited types of messages, and so I'd actually like to show you how that works. Our messages are all available in a single drop-down menu, and I can have specific formats applied to any particular message. So at its basic sense, what we had in ProPresenter version 3 was just the ability to type in a message. So you could say, "Come get your screaming child." Let me clear out my slide. And I can say, "Show the message." And again, this is just going to appear in the props layer, and it's going to show me the text that I actually typed into the message window using a format that I have predetermined. Another example would be for nursery calls. So here I have a nursery call out, and I actually have created a form for this. So all the operator needs to do is enter a child number. So I can put in child number 144, and a room number, we'll say room 201. And when I say show message, you'll see what happens is that we've actually loaded a specific formatting of text where you're saying parents of Woombaland child number 144, please come to room 201. I put it into a specific template that has this lower third graphic. It looks far more consistent. It allows you to make things look more consistent from operator to operator, because you're limiting their ability to actually do any formatting within the message window itself. You're actually just giving them and asking them to fill out individual forms. So, and much like the props layer or the props window, I can actually hide these by clicking on the close box for each of these. So let me show you exactly how this works. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and click on the editor. And I will create a new presentation. This will be for my middle schoolers. So I'll say extreme call out. So I can actually say parents of, and most churches like to do a child number. For purposes of this, I'll actually just do a first name and last name. These are called tokens that are in this right-hand side. They are dynamic identifiers of data. So by pulling these items in here from the tokens menu, I can actually create a form dynamically. You can see it's added first name and last name to my form here. I can say parents of first name and last name, please come to room, and I have a room number, so I can just drag that in. All these tokens are items that I can actually add if there was something specific that I wanted to ask. So for example, if I wanted to say parents of first name, last name, I'll do a middle name, for example. I can add a token middle name. Hitting the plus button adds middle name to my list, and so I can actually add that as a token. And you can see that the form is going to be laid out in the order that they actually appear within my message. Then I can choose whatever template that I want to for formatting. So I'll choose a center formatted template. And that's it. So getting out of the editor, I can actually just type in, put in my own information. And when I say show, it's automatically filled in that information. I need to add a space in there, but that gets you the idea of how messages work within ProPresenter 4. We also have the ability to do countdowns, and we have a lot more flexibility with regards to countdowns in ProPresenter 4 than we have previously. I'm going to go ahead and kill this this childcare announcement. Actually, let me go back there because I have want to make a reference. I also have the option to display it for a particular period of time, so I can actually specify 5, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, a minute, what have you. So when I say show the message, then I can just actually get out of it, and I know that it's automatically counting down 15 seconds, and at the end of that 15 seconds, this message will actually go away on its own. So the operator can continue about their business, and they don't have to worry about what is actually showing on the screen because you've actually specified a specific rule to get rid of those messages within a particular period of time. Okay, so continuing on with what I was talking about with regards to countdowns, I have a countdown clock. Actually, I'll say I created an announcement for service ending. And basically the text with this says, the service will end in countdown. I don't think many churches actually have a countdown clock for when the service is actually going to end, but it's kind of fun, so I'm showing it here. And I have the option for any of my countdown clocks to count down as a timer where I can actually specify a specific number, hour, minutes, and seconds, or I can actually count down to a specific time. So as the time is now 5:06, I can actually type in 5:10 p.m., or I can use a 24-hour clock. And when I show this message, it's actually going to count down to that particular time. Let me see. Didn't hit enter. Okay, so that's not working quite right, but you get the idea. It certainly will be working in the beta, hopefully, that you're actually using. So that's an example of using a countdown clock within the messages. Which brings me to my clocks. I have several different clocks. One was referencing there, and if I click on my clocks tool in the toolbar, you'll see all the different clocks that I have available to me globally throughout ProPresenter version 4. The first is just the regular clock, the current time. So the current time is 5:07 p.m. I also have a time elapsed or a stopwatch, and I can actually start that here. And this is sort of our master control for all of the different clocks that we have within the system. I have 3 different countdown timers, and I can name them whatever I want to name them. So I can actually say service countdown. I can say worship countdown and speaker countdown. This is useful if you want to give your worship leader a specific amount of time to lead worship. So let's say you want them to do a 20-minute set, and for the speaker, they're going to get 45 minutes, and they'd like to know how much time that they have left. So as an operator, I can actually start these different countdown clocks right within this single control panel, and every place within the ProPresenter application that is referencing these individual countdowns, it will automatically update those individual fields with these clocks. Which brings me to our next feature, which is a great new feature that we're calling the stage display function. If I want to show the worship countdown clock and how much time my worship leader actually has to complete their worship set, or if I want to show my speaker how much time they have left on the stage, I need to have some way of showing that to them. And so that's all done with our new stage display function. And to demonstrate that, I'm actually going to go into my preferences, click on the display. The stage display function is a third output, our first output being the operator display, that is what you're seeing here. The second output would be what the audience is seeing, which is, you know, the moving backgrounds, the slides, the polished presentation, if you will. And then the third output is the stage display. And the stage display generally looks like this, where it is much more utilitarian, and it's a simple little interface that has lots of different data on it. And I can configure this display by hitting this configure button. And here we have the different objects of the display, and as you can see, I can show the current slide. I can show it either as a slide, or as just the text of the slide. So you can see the slide, in this case, just had text centered on the screen, and so it's going to show it exactly as I have it formatted in the slide. But if I choose text only, then we just suck the text out of that slide and show it in a large font size, white against a black background, so that the people on the stage have an easier time reading it than perhaps reading the smaller text that might appear in a lower third graphic. So you get a number of different options there. We also show the next slide text. So as I go through the different slides of my presentation, and I'll just use the arrow keys, you'll see that it's actually changing the text that appears in the current slide as well as the text that appears in the next slide. Other objects that we have within my stage display are slide notes. So I can have current slide notes or next slide notes, and I can show those as just text only as well. I also have a stage announce message, which I'll show you in as an operator. I can go under the View menu and say Stage Display Message, and I can say, please have audience scooch to the center. And by saying send note, it's going to send this note to this message window. So this is an easy way as a producer that I can actually send messages to the people that are actually on the stage. And then I have all the various clocks that I just went over in the clocks window available to me. And I can resize these or move these around however I want to. Any one of these boxes can be shown or hidden, but it gives you a lot of powerful flexibility for displaying information to the people that are actually on the stage, and it's all done very, very easily. We actually sell a small device that is a USB to DVI device. It's under $100 from Renewed Vision that will allow you to get this third video display output that you can use for the stage display. So stage display is a very powerful new function of ProPresenter 4. Now I want to talk a little bit about video attributes. This is something that our users have been asking for some time. We've always had smooth video playback and smooth cross dissolves between these different videos, but when you make an investment for a large amount of content, you want to be able to reuse that content very easily. So we've added in ProPresenter 4 the ability to create attributes for individual backgrounds as well as foreground media. And to demonstrate that, I'm actually going to take this particular background and I'm going to add it to this color changes playlist. So here is my color changes playlist, and you can see that this I've done 3 of these already, where I have the same video, but it's actually 3 different colors of the same video. And the way that I do that, and you can see if I click on this, it's going to change the video background to yellow, and I've got one that's green, and I have one that's purple, and then of course the default blue. And I'd specified those to actually play within their native size. These are all available within the Properties menu, and if I pull up this Properties Inspector for this particular background clip, you'll see that I get the opportunity to set an in and out point for this particular video. I can choose its behavior, whether I want it to loop or to stop at the end when it's finished playing. I can choose the volume for this particular video clip. And I can also choose how it's actually scaled. Scaled to fit will actually scale it maximum size without cropping. Scale to fill will scale it at its maximum size with cropping. And then stretch to fill will stretch the background image as much as possible and actually morph the image to fill the output screen. I have the option to flip horizontally or vertically, and then I can choose the play rate if I want to speed up a clip or slow it down. I can also choose to change the color. So since I already have purple and all these other colors, I'll make this more of a rich green. I can change the saturation, the contrast, and the brightness. And once I've done all that, when I close this inspector, you'll see that it's actually made the modifications to this particular instance of the clip. Now this is not doing any kind of manipulation that it's saving to the hard drive. This is actually a manipulation that we're doing to this video clip on the fly. And you can have as many instances of a video clip as you want within your playlist, your video and image bin playlist. So video attributes are a new feature of ProPresenter 4 that we're really excited about. And when you actually create a background cue by holding down the command key and dragging it to a specific slide, it's going to retain those same attributes. If I want to change them on this slide, then I can right or control click on the slide and choose properties for this particular cue, and I'll change it to maybe a shade of red. And you can see that it's changed this instance of it, but hasn't affected any of the instances that are actually in my backgrounds bin. So that's video attributes in ProPresenter. Next, I want to tell you a little bit about how you can pre-sequence your slides for presentation purposes. The first manner of which is to actually set slide timers, and the slide timer allows a slide to advance from one slide to the next very quickly. You've had this ability in ProPresenter 3, which you would access by right-clicking on any slide and actually setting the Go to Next timer individually, or by selecting them as a group. But we actually in ProPresenter 4 have the ability to format and actually create or add a timer to each of these individual slides. So when I choose from the timer menu and I choose 5 seconds, it's actually going to add a 5-second timer to each of these slides. And so the first slide is going to play for 5 seconds, and it's automatically going to advance to the next slide. Now, it's important to know that if you actually have a foreground video, that is to say some sort of a video that has audio or something that's more advanced than just a single slide, that you want to show the entire video as a foreground video, then it's actually the timer will indicate the amount of seconds that it's going to pause at the end of the video. So in this case, I'm running a 5-minute roughly video, and so it's actually going to run for 5 minutes, and then it will pause at the end for 5 seconds before looping back to the first slide. So using timers is one way that you can automate your presentation, and this is really great for walk-in announcements. And the great thing is that in ProPresenter 4 you can actually be editing other songs as this presentation is going on. So while it's actually transitioning from slide to slide, I can actually be going into other songs and be making edits. So it's a very powerful new function of ProPresenter 4. But we also have an advanced timeline function. And the advanced timeline is if I want to have more fine-tuned control over the way that the slides are actually timed out. So for purposes of this, I'm going to close my format menu and open up the timeline. And here's my timeline. Any slide that exists within my timeline is called a queue. So I can add, and the timeline exists as part of a particular song. So if I pull up this song, I can manually drag slides up here. And this is creating queues for these individual slides. So if I start at the very beginning and I press play, when it hits these individual cues, it will trigger these individual slides. And the beauty of this is that we had this ability in ProPresenter 3, but you actually had to synchronize it to an audio track. You still have that ability in ProPresenter 4 to add an audio track and to actually pre-sequence the slides to an individual audio track, as well as highlight the individual words, but now you actually see more visually where these individual cues are within our particular timeline. So it's a powerful new function of ProPresenter 4, and we think you're really going to enjoy that. Finally, I would like to talk a little bit about our new WebView function. Actually, I guess it's not finally. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the WebView function. The WebView function is the ability for me as an operator to play or to display a website to my audience. And it works very simply. We just click on the WebView indicator up here, and it's actually going to load whatever web page I've last loaded and allows me to browse it just as if I were sitting in front of a regular web browser. In this case, you can see it's kind of stretched because my interface is a little stretched out. But when I hit the show button that appears here in the upper right of this website is actually going to show to my audience, but it's not going to show with all the status bars and whatnot. It's actually just going to show the way that I want it to show without any kind of minutia around it. So this is a great way to present websites to your audience and is, again, brand new in ProPresenter version 4. Once I have a particular queue, if I want to, I can actually drag this site to my playlist, and whenever I'm actually in the middle of a service, when I click on the slide, it'll actually go right to that website and allow me to show it to my audience. So powerful new function is the new WebView. And that about wraps it up with this overview of the brand new features of ProPresenter 4. We hope you enjoy it and have fun playing with the public beta. We certainly welcome your feedback in our forums, and where I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lively discussion between our users about these various features. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to providing you with even more innovative features in the future.